Hello and welcome to another edition of AI Impact and Strategy. Today we're going to be talking about babies and what AI can do for babies, which, as it turns out, is a lot. My interview partner today is Marco D'Agata, who is CEO of Neolook, a Netherlands-based company which provides an AI-assisted video feed for neonatal intensive care units. Neonatal means newborn babies, and about 10% of all babies end up in the neonatal intensive care unit because they're premature or underweight or have other health conditions. And of course, providing care for these babies is a sophisticated medical specialty. Marco's company was spun out of Philips a few years ago and has achieved by now about 55% market share in the Netherlands, and is having success in other global markets as well. The technology itself is fascinating, and Marco's description of how it works and why it's important and the value that it provides is equally compelling.
Well, good to see you.
Excellent. Very nice to see you. How are things in Amsterdam?
Amsterdam, I don't really know. We're located in Utrecht.
Okay. So how are things in Utrecht?
Yeah, well, if I look, it's a bit gray.
Thank you for taking some time to talk to me. I'm really interested to have this conversation.
Me too. Yes. So my name is Marco D'Agata. I studied biomedical science in the Netherlands, which is 50% medicine and 50% research here in Utrecht. I always had the luck to be working in quite specialistic innovation projects. So think about vaccine development, trials on babies, bioterrorism, overuse of psychopharmaca at the national level, all kinds of specialty topics. Then I used to work at the largest healthcare insurance company of the Netherlands. After that, I went to Philips to work on international deals. And there, actually, Neolook was born. We did a relatively small deal in a neonatal intensive care in Rome, in Fate Bene Fratelli. So we did quite an okay job to develop an entire neonatal intensive care department. And then these doctors at a certain moment said, well, they're closing down these small departments in the region. And now parents have to come from 30 kilometers, 50 kilometers, and even more away. So even if we open up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they can't come. So think of something, how we can organize family bonding, right? And we pulled out technologies from Philips research. So we said, let's prototype, demonstrate, and implement straight on the floor. It landed in the national news in Italy, landed in national newspaper in the Netherlands, became a venture in Philips, a high-scoring venture. And then something odd happened in 2018. Philips got a nice correction on Wall Street, and that caused Philips to choose adults by necessity. And children were off strategy. And normally they pull the plug on these initiatives like these, but everybody was, really involved, had a good heart about taking care for kids. So we said, look, how can we move this forward? And we decided to spin it out. So in 2020, we spun out of Philips, completely independent. And since 2020 onwards, we are thriving. We're doing well. So we started small. We're now 17 people, captured 55% of the Dutch market, and hopefully going national quite soon.
So that's fantastic. So tell us more about Neolook and what it does.
Yeah. So what do we do? So instead of taking a real technology idea and pushing that forward, already in Philips, I said, look, we have to stay really close to the beating heart of healthcare, right? So start from the voice of the nurse, start from the voice of the doctor, walk the floor, walk with them shoulder to shoulder, listen to them, ask to them, what do you need today and what do you need tomorrow, right? And then solve it and keep all the technology under the hood. So what we did is we put the child in the middle of our view. The child is in the middle. We cannot treat a child, touch a child, right? So let's take care of the people around the child. What can we do for moms and dads? Well, that's bonding and that's parent participation, right? That's one. What can we do for the nurses? Situational awareness, team response, alarm management, right? You go into that angle. If you look at the doctor, they need to be able to spot symptoms. They need to be able to to do remote consultations. They need to be able to capture clinical events. So when we started to circle around the people, around the child, we got to these 3 different services that they would need to act as a team. We have this, you could call it a video technology on steroids, right? So as we speak, like now, like on video, that's like a consumer version. But if you want to do a neat job, you need a medical grade version. So Philips developed a medical grade version of the technology that allows us to create these solutions quite fast, like in 6 months, spin it up on a platform, deploy them and scale them. So we have a family solution. So moms and dads can connect to their child. Quite often visiting hours are limited, or there's infection control. Sometimes the mom is in the hospital, or they have children at home, or dad is a trucker and he's out there. So how can you connect mom and dad and extended family? That's one level. And that's a separate, you can call it a separate medical grade service with its own rules and regulations, its own laws, its own GDPR, its own privacy controls, right? And that goes from a high technological environment straight through all the security layers to the phones of the parents. And we control that entire stream. Now, the same we do for nurses. That starts with line of sight, right? And then you do it within the hospital, high uptime, high resolution, landing these streams on mobile phones, central stations, on monitors to make sure they can watch over those kids. And for doctors, we do the same. And then we have this layer on top of it, which is our algorithm and AI layer. And that's when the fun kicks in. What can we do to actually, well, not substitute, maybe even substitute, right? So if a nurse needs to observe, right, and they want to see skin color or crying patterns or movement patterns, can we take that piece of cognitive work over by AI and algorithms? And that's what we're doing. So we're just asking, what do you need to see? What do you need to hear? What do you need to analyze, right? And they say, I want to see this, I want to see that. And we translate that to AI solutions. So we have a little lineup, and it starts seemingly simple with cry detection, right? But cry detection is already a bucket of its own. Movement analysis, that's a second. Sleep-wake patterns we do. Stable, unstable predictability. 3 times a day, a new team comes on the floor, right? There's continuity of a doctor.
Okay.
And sometimes they already have a bit of problem with staff scarcity, right? So when a new team gets on the floor, they want to know which kid needs a nurse one-on-one, which kids need one nurse on 2, which kid needs one nurse on 4, right? And they have to divide that properly. Now, they do that, of course, by their own knowledge, but that's now supported with AI. So they can predict which kids are going to be unstable and need extra eyes because they can get a seizure or they can get a collapse, and which kids are stable, right?
Mm-hmm.
If people say they are stable and the AI says it's stable, the algorithm, they're more comfortable and say, okay, we can do 1 nurse in 4.
So these are from newborn until how old are they going to be under the care of the neonatal ward?
So neonatal is typically prematures and incubators, so to say. So that can start really, really premature borns like 24 weeks, 25, 26, but that's quite rare, 30 weeks, right? And then we as a company say, well, until about 3 months, it's neonatal.
Okay.
And after that, it becomes pediatric. But those professionals don't think like that. They think in weight. They say, well, until this weight, it's us, and in that weight, it's them.
Tell us more about the AI. For example, what platform are you working on? What's the core technology? And also, where do you think the technology is going, given that AI is evolving so quickly?
We use actually very generic tools to create those AIs because we want to be fast and try it out in practice. The cry detection, for example, it's basically just a convolutional network, right? It's not that difficult. The fun part for us starts when you deploy it, right? So in the lab, things were great. In science, you have high accuracy, right? And we think, nah, we're not about science. We're going to put it on the floor, right, with these high-level professionals that have little time for errors, and then we see how it behaves, right? And that's really, really, really something else. So you can have an AI performing 98% accuracy. Well, when you put it on the work floor, right, with real nurses and real patients and real doctors, they think really differently, right? They want to know specificity, sensitivity, accurateness, and it needs to be spot on. I think on the speed of technology, there's something special going on with these NICUs and PICUs. So what we see in the Netherlands is that all these departments are teaming up to share data. Mm-hmm. Now, why is that? If you think from a healthcare point of view, like for example in the Netherlands, like if something goes wrong within 15 minutes, 1-5, an ambulance needs to be at your door. It's a rule, right? And hospitals stick up to it. Payers stick up. If that doesn't happen, they intervene, right? 10% of deliveries of babies become complex and go wrong, right? And 3% end up in neonatal intensive care units. It makes sense that you have these intensive care units with a relatively large geographical area, and they are relatively small. So 20-bed department, 30-bed department, but a 20 or 30-bed department is not enough to collect enough data, right? A qualitative study already needs like 50 patients, right? Structurally, these departments are too small. They're heavy in data, but they're a bit too small from a patient number point of view. So that's why we said we're going to bundle them all, bundle data with the idea to speed up all this AI. So we have this way of working now in the Netherlands where if one hospital says we're doing cry detection, right? And they spin it up and do the first version, other hospitals say we're taking it over and we're going to deploy it as well. And we're going to share data to improve the AI. Another hospital says we're going to do the movement assessment, right? Then other hospitals say, okay, as soon as you have it, we take it over. And I think this is an interesting strategy to do at a national level.
Yeah.
To bundle the data, to keep the data in the national jurisdiction, so to say, right? So you govern the data, right, and share it to be able to speed up this AI, because AI just needs loads of data. If you don't have it, you cannot progress.
But the other thing that occurs to me as I listen to you explain this is just neonatal and in ICU.
Yeah.
But obviously, the implications of this approach to hospital care are going to spread outside of neonatal quickly if they haven't already. And then you can think about, well, okay, if I could install a camera in my home, an elderly person at home could be monitored in the same way, or a sick person at home, and then you've really talked about how you're transforming the entire healthcare system.
So you're spot on, Langdon. And we do neonatology, which is a very small segment, rich in data, very competent people, right? So on a square meter, you have the patient, you have a lot of data, you have highly competent people, because these doctors are all PhDs, the nurses are university level, lots of them, people do research, right? Technology is high, knowledge is high, capability is high. And when they accept you as somebody who say, you understand us, they start to talk, you start to get a shared language where you can understand very quickly what you are doing. Mm-hmm. So in the Netherlands, we call it the sharper the point, the faster the breakthrough. You take a very deep specialization.
Yeah.
But not only for that, right? Because if it works for intensive care, you're really close at high care. You can do medium care. You can do step-down care. Right. So what do these hospitals want? They want to expand immediately to adjacent departments. And why do these Dutch insurance companies embrace us? Because they say, what you do solves a really serious staffing problem. And then they say, well, neonatology, we have it covered, right? Because nobody wants problems in that area, and they're going to pay for it, right? But I say, can we bring it to elderly care? Can we bring it to home care? Can we bring it along the entire chain of pediatrics, right? So they are doing this to expand it to other segments. Yeah, and we are step by step doing that with business partners, but we have a deliberate choice to go, almost in a super specialization to get it to work. By going in this really deep niche, we can be more speedy and fast, and we keep understanding each other. and then it expands. Yeah.
So is it part of your corporate strategy that you're going to go into other areas of care as well?
Yeah, we have 7 multipliers, which are equally big as neonatology. And when the insurance companies ask, well, how are you going to serve elderly care, or how are you going to serve adult care? I said, look, we're fine in licensing out the technology to a party which is already has a large market share or a big installed base, or they can leverage it on their platforms, and we're perfectly fine with that. But the deliberate strategy is to stay really, really focused and then expand with partners.
So let's say you're starting in a new hospital. You go in on day one and you meet with the, I don't know, the head of the department, the
Yeah,
doctors, nurses, etc. How long does it take before they are up and running and proficient in using the tool?
you wouldn't go into these long sales cycles. We would say start a package, 6 months, try it, 50-50 skin in the game. You pay 30, 40K, but you create a fully working solution of which the nurses say, huh, now this is helpful, right? And the doctors say, okay, this is good, right? And the manager says, huh, you do that with data underneath, a true trial, right? With real parents or real nurses, real patients, but with the commitment that if the results are good, they go into step 2, either direct conversion to a solution as a service,
Mm-hmm.
or a scale-up phase. And quite often we see a scale-up phase where they say, okay, we're going to now do it in the entire department, train people, right? Test robustness, test performance, all that kind of things.
How do you charge? Do you charge per child or per bed, or how does it work?
I think it's important that the business model that we have fits into the business model, so to say, of the hospital. Sounds a bit odd, that business model, but what for us makes a lot of sense is to use a price per bed per year.
Are you able to calculate the savings?
So we are moving into that right now. So of course, as a medical company, you do all your proof points, and your proof points first must be medical. They must be clinical, and so that part is quite okay covered. The family solution is more adopted right now, so there's more data behind that. But what all the hospitals are pulling in is the professional solution, and that's all about staff scarcity, closing gaps, right? Operational efficiency. So for every hospital, we create proof points with data underneath that gets signed off by management, right? So those data we have, yeah, we call it end user driven innovation, right? We go into a hospital and we say, what problem? Is there a problem in the first place, right? Is it so important that it needs to be solved right now, right? And what do we solve to need tomorrow? And then we go into a project, right, to actually do it and gather the data. But it's not like an R&D scientific pipeline, so to say, right? And then we come out, because I know a few of these companies, right, who spend years and years and years in research, and they come out and go on the market, and then they learn that their price is too high. Well, we don't have that problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if a hospital says, well, we want it and we need it now and we want to pay for it, we're now going to Abu Dhabi, and we're basically going to say, look, you need your own population data as a reference collections,
Right.
to test AIs and to build up the validation, as we call it, right?
Right.
Now we're going to Singapore, we're going to do the same thing, right? So I think there's a lot to say that governments create the conditions for these technologies to be used on their population, right?
Right.
So they should build up reference collections, they should build up policies in place to test and prove that.
What you're implying, which I think is true, is that there has to be a government policy regime in place. And ideally, I think from a healthcare perspective, the government would mandate that the hospitals would have to share their data in order to get a national picture and to have a larger database, et cetera.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of governance and security and privacy questions associated with that. But ultimately, we think that's going to happen not only for healthcare data, but for commercial data, business data, urban data, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to end up with essentially national regulatory regimes that both govern the use of data, but also mandate that data has to be made available for aggregation purposes. to
Yes.
provide the AI systems with a sufficiently large pool to draw from.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So we are working with these hospitals to create so-called secondary data,
Right.
which is not well defined yet, right? But it's basically, so let's say you have a movement pattern. If you have the raw footage, you see the baby, right? You see it moving. Now you can
Mm-hmm.
extract all the key points, right? You can basically leave the baby out and you can see it almost like a little skeleton moving in color, right? And you could say, okay, that's the anonymized data.
Right.
Um, but we also know that the insurance companies they want that secondary layer to be able to use that data because they have a lot of population data, right? So that's one angle. So sharing data between hospitals already requires this
Mm-hmm.
anonymous data or
Right.
pseudonymized data.
Right.
We have this healthcare payers who or healthcare insurance companies who have information dominance. They have so much data, right? And they want to use that data.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the Netherlands, they are having a plan in place to create a national AI factory. So they basically say it's for our population, and we want our own data to be in there, our own algorithms to be in there, and test them within our own systems, right? So you get a bit of a geographical or national sphere, so to say, right?
As you said at the beginning of our conversation, a year ago, the things that are common now were almost science fiction. Very
Yeah, I know.
quickly.
It's going quite fast.
I saw this morning an article that said that the UK has decided that they're going to be a global AI powerhouse, and the government is setting aside money for AI infrastructure and AI investment. And the challenge that they're going to face, along with everyone else, is all the countries are going to decide they have to do that. And so it's
Yeah,
there's going to be a pouring of money. It's going to be an arms race, a spiral of development.
yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
not everyone can be number one. So it'll be interesting to
No,
see
and
how it goes.
actually, it almost seems they're a bit late in the game because China, for us, feels like a more government driven. So the data serves the order
Yeah,
of society from the government with a strong government.
right.
I think the Netherlands is relatively liberal, concerned to some other European countries. So a strong individual sense, also a strong collective sense. But yeah, we like the government also to be a bit smaller. The United States, where data or policies serve business, right? So we say, okay, that's the business sphere, that's the political sphere, and we want the human-centered sphere, right? But it's not so easy. Yeah? It's not so easy at all. I like the privacy rules and regulations that we have. Yeah, I really like them. I think they're good. But on the long run, how to speed up and how to be at the leading edge. Yeah, maybe you need a bit more of this unregulated area for people to
Yeah,
play. Yeah,
to experiment. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, to experiment. And then when you mess up, you end up in court in the States. Is that not you get corrected really fast. Yeah.
Even before you mess up. I just looked at the clock. We've been talking for almost an hour.
Oh, yeah. Well, this
You
is
see?
another. I just forget about time.
No, I
Um,
know. It seems like 5 minutes to me. It's been very, very interesting. So,
I would be really interested in understanding how governments in countries deal with these kind of topics so how are they doing on the policy level? Well, first of all, I read your entire book on business model warfare, right? So I want to thank you for that.
oh, excellent. I'm glad to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. If I read it and I find good stuff, we immediately activate it. In terms of questions, it's about these. So how do countries at a national level, how are they developing these policies? How mature is it? How open? How close? How far? That's one.
We have taken an advocacy position on that with respect to
Mhm.
openness, transparency, policy, decision making,
Yeah,
because it's very clear just within the realm of AI, not speaking so much AI in healthcare, but just within AI, that you can take an inclusive approach to AI, or you can take what's referred to as an extractive approach to AI. And
yeah,
those lead to very different economic situations.
and
Inclusive
yeah,
Inclusive means everyone is in.
yeah,
Extractive means it's designed for the elite. So you think about a petrostate, or like
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi. It's a
Hmm.
very extractive economy. So there's a 10% of the population are citizens.
Yeah.
Most of the workers are not citizens,
Yeah.
and they have very little rights, and they don't access the wealth that's
Yeah.
produced
Yeah.
by the oil, for example. So a petrostate is classically extractive.
Hmm.
Any economy that's based on mineral production, that's that the money goes mostly to the elite, is extractive.
Got it. I got it. I
An
got it.
economy like the Netherlands, which is open and democratic and based on learning and merit and accomplishment, is inclusive. The point with AI is that it can reinforce either one.
Yeah, that's very
You could
true.
take an
That's very true.
extractive system and you could end up with Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk owning everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could make it so that we all own a piece of our own country.
In the end, it enforces, if you do nothing, it enforces the culture that's already there, right? Yeah. So a closing reflection from me would be, I think a lot of what is happening with AI, we barely grasp, right? It's technology driven. And what
Mm.
I think is so interesting about healthcare, if you apply it to cars, right? We design those cars. We as a people, we understand those cars and we apply AI to it, right? And things work, right? HR, buildings, all kind of, yes. But the human body, we don't fully grasp yet, right? And then when you start to apply AI, yeah, sometimes we don't know yet how things pan out, how things work. So what I like is this human body metaphor on one side, right? And then technology on the other side. I try to get them really close to each other and see if it works or if it just doesn't fit. And
Mhm.
I think that's a beautiful area to try that out, what it can do. Yeah, this cry detection sounds so simple. It's really difficult to do that on a premature in a medical setting, right? So the technology proves itself or shows its weaknesses also quite fast. Yeah,
But you succeeded in doing it with cry detection, yes?
yeah, we're doing it. We're quite far, quite far. It's difficult, but it's quite good. Yeah,
That's fantastic. That's great. Marco, it was really a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
thank you.
We'll be in touch soon.
Yes, we will. We keep a line. I love the sharing of thoughts, of ideas, right? We are working quite below deck, as we call it. So I'm really eager on reading a book and getting some current knowledge and people like you that have, the intellect to write about it and talk about it. Yeah, much needed.
Anytime. Feel free to reach out and I'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Ciao.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks again to Marco for spending so much time with me. It was fascinating to learn about the work that he's doing and, of course, the benefit that he's having for neonatal babies and for their families and for their caregivers. One of the themes that we've been emphasizing throughout this series of interviews is the capacity of AI to provide pattern recognition in ways that are beyond human capabilities. And we see that very clearly here in this example, using AI to analyze the patterns of babies crying or their skin color or their movement in order to assess their condition and provide very early detection of problems is a tremendous benefit for everyone involved, not least the babies themselves. And it helps us to understand the very many ways in which AI is already being used to enhance our lives. And it suggests many fascinating possibilities for the future as well.
We're all humans. We take care of each other. And nowhere else you feel more human than in a neonatal intensive care unit, where one faces the challenges and difficulties a newborn child may encounter. With growing concerns in terms of increased demand, staff availability and bed capacity, how can we make sure we give these little miracles the best start in life? This is where Neolook Solutions pushes boundaries. With our award-winning technology S2S, we provide family-integrated care solutions, line-of-sight monitoring, alarm management, and remote consultation, centralizing real-time visual and clinical data that multiple types of users can access remotely via our easy-to-use, secure cloud application. Our solutions cross boundaries inside and outside the hospital for families, so they are able to bond and share moments with their loved ones without hindering the day-to-day work of practitioners. For academics, to advance science in open innovation and develop AI algorithms together. For professionals, who go above and beyond, day and night, to enable them to keep a clinical eye along the patient journey from incubator to home. S2S provides an advanced and efficient environment that makes the work of healthcare professionals more effective, more safe, and more enjoyable, while contributing to medical practices and privacy standards. So one day, parents will be able to hold, hug, and nurture their most precious gift. And we're just getting started. We continue to leverage AI innovations such as automated detection of convulsions, general movement assessment, cry patterns, sleep-wake states, withdrawal symptoms, and skin color, so we are able to better respond, treat, and predict. We continue to realize new levels of connection between the people that make up the care team around the child, in wards, hospitals, and research centers, no matter where they are based globally. We continue to discover new horizons in neonatal care. The limits of our potential are the limits of our imagination. So let's discover new horizons together. Let's innovate together for our children.